let's get to work. Now, I just did my theory on can Disney really do it. So now I'm going to look at film theory. Should Disney can...
You've got big plans for your small business. And Constant Contact's email marketing tools make it easy to stay connected with customers. So you can do more business online without the heavy
Now I'm
lifting.
checking out, can Disney buy Spider-Man? Now there's a second part to this theory.
Can we please just...
Hey, Matt Pat.
This? It's obvious you're gonna win. You own all the railroads, you own all the utilities, you have hotels on every square but one.
Then we keep playing. I told you I want it all.
Yep, he's got the evil eye.
Ugh.
Fame really changed
You know,
Mickey,
we had a lot
hasn't
of
it?
fun when I was a kid.
Agreed. 4, 3, 2, 1. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
Hello, Internet!
Next, welcome to Film
Theory. In our final episode, not just of the year, but of the decade. Provided this episode remains short enough and is able to...
Hey, Matt Pat.
All the editors taking vacation.
Long time, Matt Pat.
2019 was a pretty fantastic year for
Yes,
movies.
yes, it
Returns
was.
of animated classics. We had the finales to some of the most
Yeah.
massive cinematic story arcs in history, and outside of the blockbuster space, just some really solid films overall. Parasite is great, Lighthouse is great, Marriage Story is great, Dr. Sleep is great, and all of those are from, like, the last 2 months. But today, with it being the end of the decade, I wanted to look back at what will undoubtedly be the biggest story of this decade in movie making. A story that will continue to shape the cinematic and, quite honestly, corporate world moving forward. Actually, it's 2 stories wrapped up together in one. The massive success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Disney's ever-expanding control over all the media that we love. Or, at least used to love. Ain't that right, Rise of Skywalker? I see you, or more accurately, I see the audience responses to you. In case you're not...
When...
Disney, over the last decade, has just taken over everything.
Yeah.
At the top of the decade, they had just bought Marvel. 2 years later, they would buy Star Wars.
Yep.
Now, fast forward to today, they have Fox, as well as the most
Yes.
massively successful day one streaming service in history with Disney, ESPN, Hulu, ABC. It's like...
Oh, I'm missing shirts. And I thought they all went in.
board, over the last 10 years, they've managed to convert most pieces to their color, or else eliminate all the other pieces from the board. But there is still one powerful piece at play here. It's a queen, and that queen is Spider-Man. Alright, so maybe it wasn't the cleanest metaphor, but still, you get the point. One of this year's biggest entertainment stories was the ongoing battle between Disney and
Wait,
Sony.
what's that?
One of this year's biggest entertainment stories...
Sony pulls Spider-Man out of the MCU over profit-sharing dispute with Disney. Sony pulls Spider-Man out of the MCU over profit-sharing dispute with Disney.
was the ongoing battle between...
Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige has pulled out producing future Spider-Man films.
Sony for the rights over Spider-Man. Like a child caught in a divorce, Spider-Man's existence has been a state of joint custody over the last couple years. And earlier this year, after a few awkward attempts to renegotiate their agreement, rumors started swirling that
Disney rumored to buy Spider-Man back from Sony Pictures for Marvel Studios.
now be trying to straight up purchase Spider-Man's movie rights. The price tag is rumored to be as high as $10 billion. Billion with a B, and as low as $4 to $5 billion. Considering Disney purchased the entirety of Marvel for $4 billion a decade ago, the question we're planning on exploring today is, should Disney make the deal? Is Spider-Man actually worth $10 billion? If not, what is he worth? But loyal theorists, it's more than that. It's not just a price tag that we're talking about here. It's also a game of cat and mouse with the highest stakes possible. It's game theory, as both sides of this argument try to outwit and outplay the other. But before we get to that part of this tangled little web, let's take a quick rundown of how Disney and Sony got to this point to begin with. It's important to keep in mind that Spider-Man's movie rights were first sold off in 1985, and they've taken a far different ownership path than Spider-Man's merchandising rights. The merch rights were secured by Disney back in 2011 for $278 million. So already, just 2 sentences into this thing, you have yourself a weird scenario. All those Spider-Man toys, PJs, and lunchboxes that you're buying, that money is already going back to restock the Disney vault. Not the vault where they keep the movies they're creating full scarcity for, no, the big one. The one full of sacks of cash, gold bars, and Walt's cryogenically frozen head. What we're focusing on today, and what all of these arguments are over, are the Spider-Man movie rights. Just the ability to make movies about Spider-Man. Now, those rights got bounced around for a decade and a half before they were eventually licensed to Spider-Man. Now, those rights got bounced
Canon
around
Films,
for a decade and a half.
Carico, and Mori Globy.
Pictures, the main film subsidiary of Sony, back in 1999.
So they have to.
That's $10 million. Plus 5% of any movie's gross revenues and half the revenue of consumer products. Anyway, that's beside the point.
So this answers half of my theory here. As I said in my previous video about this, sure, if Disney does buy back Sony, now I have the answer I was seeking. In order to buy back Sony, they gotta go through their biggest competition yet. Columbia Pictures.
Big reason why the movie rights were bounced around so much and why they sold for so unbelievably cheap is the poor box office performance of Superman 3 in 1983. Yeah, true story. After Superman 3 flopped, Hollywood was hesitant to make feature film adaptations of comic book properties for a couple decades afterward. But Sony's 1999 acquisition of Spider-Man changed all of it. That deal brought us Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. From the moment all of it. That deal brought
my childhood Spider-Man trilogy right there.
Spider-Man trilogy. From the moment
Don't get me wrong, I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but I'm more attached to Tobey Maguire's version. 2.5 billion?
Single-handedly ushered in the superhero revolution that we find ourselves in today. The following decade, Sony rebooted the Spider-Man franchise.
The Amazing Spider-Man.